Dr. Navon, thank you very much for talking to us on this topic. Iran here with a significant statement following nearly 2 weeks of protests and a possible Donald Trump pitch for US intervention in Tehran and the rest of Iran. Tehran is openly calling US bases and Israel legitimate targets. From Israel's security perspective, how serious is this threat?
Well, first of all, this threat is typical of a dictatorship in need of outside enemies in order to justify its illegitimate rule. For many decades, the Iranian Islamic Republic has used Israel and the United States as outside enemies in order to try and build consensus in Iran. But this is no longer working. The Iranian people wants its freedom and does not consider neither Israel nor the United States as their enemies. On the contrary. And that's why the Iranian Islamic Republic is threatening Israel again. Now, Israel is taking those threats seriously. Our 3,500-year history has taught us to always take threats seriously. But as we remember, in June, there was a war already between Iran and Israel had the upper hand and took control of the airspace of Iran and was able to hit both its nuclear program and its missile program. So Israel is ready for another confrontation with Iran if Iran decides to attack Israel the same way that it's been attacking its own citizens.
Why does the United States want to intervene? Of course, we saw 29 Israelis killed in the conflict in June, and so the Iranian military has shown itself capable of penetrating the Iron Dome in a small way. Of course, much built-up infrastructure in Israel shows a clear more risk for the Israeli public over the United States military, which of course has multiple military bases in the region, which Iran has deemed targets as well. If Washington does intervene, does that ultimately strengthen Israel's security or put it more at risk?
Well, not only Israel's security, the security of Europe and of the free world in general. Don't forget that Iran is at the center of a web of aggressive regime that destabilized the region. Iran itself is a narco-state and a state that exports weapons through the Middle East and through Latin America and Africa, which is part of a network that included until recently Venezuela under the leadership of Maduro. So these countries together form a web of anti-Western and anti-free country network. And of course, with the demise of the Iranian web of aggression in the Middle East, thanks to Israel's successful military operation against the Iranian web of aggression, and thanks to the U.S. military intervention last week against Maduro, this Iranian web of aggression is falling apart. But Iran itself continues to be the head of the octopus, and I think that's the reason why the United States is determined to put an end to this regime, which would finally dismantle this web of aggressive regime that endanger not only Israel, but also the United States and the free world in general.
Dr. Navon, is there appetite in Israel for round two in Iran if the United States with Iran, if United States does get involved and this does escalate into something more regional?
In Israel, there's only appetite with one thing, and that is life. Israelis want to live peacefully in this region, but this is not possible as long as the regime of the Islamic Republic, which is messianic, aggressive, and dimensional, it wants to eliminate Israel with its strategy of its proxies throughout the region and its nuclear program.
So Iran has said that what it's going to do, it's going to retaliate if the United States does attack. It's going to retaliate both against US military bases and against Israel. Does Israel now want the United States to intervene?
Israel doesn't want the United States to intervene. The United States is a sovereign country that can do whatever they want. And I don't think that the United States needs Israel's advice or opinion on its national security policy. This is purely a decision from the US government to make and for the President of the United States to make that has nothing to do with Israel. But Israel, of course, being the main target of Iran, of Iran's obsession, not of Iran, but of the Islamic Republic's obsession with Israel. So, of course, Israel does have an interest in the demise of this very, very dangerous regime. But those decisions, of course, whether to intervene or not against Iran is purely for the United States to make. Israel, for its part, is ready to defend itself if it is once again attacked by the regime of the Islamic Republic.
Dr. Navon, stay with us as we have here. Despite the fact that we've, of course, had huge protests throughout the years, like 2019, 2022, do you believe this is more significant than those that have occurred previously?
Definitely. We see an Iranian people that is raising against its oppressors in mass numbers, that is willing to take the risk of being killed, and that feels that it has the support of the free world, or at least part of the free world, and knows also that in the past year, the Iranian web of aggression has been crumbling in the Middle East, but also around the world. As I said before, the last event, of course, was last week with the demise of the Maduro regime. So the Iranian people today has more courage, has nothing to lose, and it's not only because of the economic crisis in Iran. It is also because, as I said, thanks to Israel and to the United States in the past 2 years, the Iranian web of aggression has been falling apart, and the United States is threatening to intervene on behalf of the Iranian people. And therefore, today it's completely different, because everybody sees that the Iranian regime of the Islamic Republic is on its last leg. It is really threatened this time. And this rebellion is, in that sense, very different from its previous one. And I think that we're reaching another Berlin Wall moment where a whole empire is going to be crumbling in front of our eyes.
Dr. Emmanuel Navon, as always, thank you very much for taking the time and speaking.